And now, back to the Dr. A Show with your host, Dr. Will Aguila.
Welcome back to the show. Our guest today is Dr. Leonard Mlodinow, best-selling author of Subliminal, How Your Unconscious Mind Rules Your Behavior. Dr. Mlodinow, before the break we were talking about subliminal messages and how that can affect us. Can advertisers really create subliminal messages that will make you buy?
Well, I got the title of the book from what would turn out to be a hoax in the late 1950s where a theater owner said that he was flashing subliminal messages during movies and getting people to drink more Coke and eat more popcorn, and that really doesn't work that way. But there are many signs and many signals and things that go on in your environment that do affect you similarly in a subliminal manner. I'll give you one example of an experiment that was done in England. This grocery store had an aisle where they sold French and German wine, and they played on alternate days either German music or French music on the wine aisle. And they found that shoppers would buy, two-thirds of them would buy German wine on the days they played German music, and two-thirds of the shoppers would buy French wine on the days they played French music. And researchers who were studying this, they interviewed them afterwards, the buyers, and most of them didn't remember hearing the music or didn't notice it. And the others who did claimed that it didn't affect their purchase. But obviously it did, because you could see it in the results. So there are subliminal things going on in your environment that affect the way you behave. I mean, the way a person's body language or posture, as we talked about the politicians before, that's subliminally affecting the way you're judging them, thinking that you're judging them on other things.
It's like Christmas music during the holidays when you're shopping.
Yeah, and a lot of stores play happy or mood music in the background, knowing that shoppers will buy more when there's upbeat music playing. So, there's a whole field now that's grown up just in the last few years called neuromarketing, where they take the results of social neuroscience and they apply them to how to better sell things to you.
Tell us a little bit about that Pepsi paradox. I think that's really interesting.
Well, okay, so Coca-Cola spends billions of dollars on ads to make you associate happiness with Coke. There's been campaign after campaign of I like to buy the world a Coke or have a Coke and a smile and so on over decades. And scientists have found that this really affects people's taste buds, because when they do blind taste tests of Coke versus Pepsi, people tend to like Pepsi better. But when they do a blind taste test, when they do a non-blind taste test, and they know that one is Coke and one is Pepsi, they choose the Coke. But people deny that it's the brand that does this. But scientists can see it's the brand because they've actually done these taste tests while they're imaging the person's brain. And what they find is that as people are tasting the beverage, if they know that it's Coke, a certain part of their brain that has to do that they've associated with pleasure associated with brand warm and fuzziness that comes from that lights up. And it lights up with Coke but not with Pepsi. So you can see in the brain, you can see the effect of their advertising. And so it's really pretty amazing. And that's, advertisers learned long ago that the best ad is not one that just explains the advantages of the product, but it's one that goes at your feelings about the product. It's totally irrational. And now the scientists are seeing the mechanism for that in the unconscious mind that's affecting us. And what's really important about this is you can't resist it. You don't know that it's happening. You feel it, and it comes in insidious ways into your judgments where you think you're making conscious judgments, but you're really not.
This also tips into, so to speak, no pun intended, into other areas such like as a restaurant. How about a waiter that's trying to get more tips by using subliminal signals?
That's right. Because we're social animals and because we're primates, like other primates, a very important way that we bond with each other is through touch. And this is very explicit in other primates, and it's much more subtle in humans. A very light incidental touch that you give to another person will release oxytocin in their brain and make them feel more trusting of you, more bonded to you. And I'm talking about a touch that's an instant, a quarter or a half second, say on the shoulder or the elbow, very subtle as you're talking to them that they won't even remember later for the most part. This will change the way they behave toward you. And the study that you were talking about, actually there have been several studies in restaurants that show that waiters who do this say to half their customers, give them a light touch as opposed to not touching the other customers, increase their tips on average from 14% to 17.5%. And the studies have been done in many areas, and they find more cooperation and more trust when people have been touched. In France, of course, they did a great study where they had young, handsome men on a street corner trying to pick up single young women who walked by, and those who gave them a touch doubled their success rate from 10 to 20%. So it happens in all areas of life.
So we have any servers out there that are listening to the show, there you go. You got a little tip here. Again, no pun intended.
That's right.
Is our unconscious mind responsible for addictive behaviors and bad habits?
Well, our unconscious mind plays a large role in addictive behavior. That's right. Addiction is a disease. It's not. People think that addiction is a choice that people make, but who would make that choice? Who would make the choice to ruin your life and be desperate for money and to have horrible withdrawal and so on? I mean, our conscious mind can be used, and you have to learn to use your conscious mind to overcome certain impulses, and that's one reason we have a conscious mind. And I wrote the book because I think that if people are aware of the unconscious influences, then you can use their conscious mind to help control them. But so it does have play a great role there. But you have to keep in mind that the unconscious mind, in general, is a great gift to us, as I described earlier. It lets you just even navigate your physical environment, and it lets you interact smoothly with other people. But there are times when it's a negative, when you have like the equivalent of an optical illusion. You have an illusion about people, or you have impulses that are negative. So it does lead you astray sometimes, but in general, it's a great gift.
Is that what people sometimes call the gut feeling? I have a gut feeling about something.
Your mind, your unconscious mind, one of the things it does for you is it processes complex data. So studies show that if you're analyzing a very complex data, and I have this experience as a physicist, if you then take a break and come back to it and let your unconscious mind process it, you'll understand the data better than if you just work straight through thinking about it constantly. And you see this in sports too. A golfer or a basketball player, if you're an expert and you think about your swing or your dribble, you're going to do worse than if you just let your unconscious mind take over. Whereas if you're a beginner in basketball or golf, it helps to think about what you're doing. But once you get it to be habitual and it goes into your unconscious, you let it take over and it does a better job.
You also write that we can fake our childhood memories, or not really?
They can be faked. I described earlier how your brain, your unconscious processing in your brain takes limited data from the environment that really would make a fuzzy picture if you looked at it literally, and it creates for you, but through its processing, a very clear picture of what you're looking at. And your mind does the same with memory. Our memory is not like a video of what happened in the past. It only captures certain gist or certain key aspects of what happened. And when you have a memory, your mind fills in the memory just like it fills in the vision. And because of that, you can have false memories. And I discuss in the book how it's possible to take people and build false memories for them without them knowing it. It's really amazing.
So your mind actually fills in the blank spaces with what you know now.
Yeah, and this is one reason that about 30%, I think, of eyewitness testimony of crimes in experiments where people identify the criminal are incorrect, because you can put someone in whose face is similar on its major points, to the perp, and if people believe that one of these suspects in the photos is probably the right one, and there's one that looks similar and the other ones don't, there's a good chance that they will pick out that one even though it's the wrong person. And that's really tragic when it comes to criminal cases that are decided mainly on eyewitness testimony.
So there could be serious implications because of this, of course.
There are very serious implications. That's right. Due to DNA testing, we've now discovered that a lot of people that were convicted based on eyewitness testimony really were innocent. And because of that ability to sometimes have scientific evidence, we've been able to see just how bad an effect the unconscious memory building it can be.
Yeah, that's very serious. Now, let me ask you, nowadays we have several superstitions that we may still hold that are related to subliminal messages in the unconscious mind. What are some of those superstitions that we may still hold?
Well, people think that they can flash a quick word at you and change your behavior due to that. I mean, George Bush in one of his campaigns ran an ad that said "rats" with Al Gore's face for, I think it was a 30th of a second in the middle of the ad. And apparently people who were working for him thought they could get people to vote for Bush that way. And that doesn't really work. It's a lot more subtle the way subliminal messages work. So that kind of mind control in the movie theater or on the television, it doesn't work that way. It works in the other ways that I've described.
Very interesting stuff. I recommend this book highly. Again, the book is called Subliminal, How Your Unconscious Mind Rules Your Behavior, and there is an actual subliminal message right on the cover. So if you pick it up, you'll see it. Okay, thank you, Dr. Mlodinow, for being on the show. You get back again soon.
That'll be fun.
Let me tell you about our Dr. A Show giveaway. As a thank you for listening to my show, we'll be giving away an iPod Nano at the end of this month. To enter, you simply need to log on to thedrashow.com and click on the Enter to Win button. Then like Dr. A on Facebook and enter your information. And at the end of this month, we will pick a winner at random and announce that winner on the air. So keep listening to hear your name. There's no purchase necessary to win. So again, that website is thedrashow.com. That's our show for today. And until next week, this is Dr. A wishing you a healthy and happy week.